Hi everyone, and welcome to the Jobcast. I'm excited to introduce our presenter today, Tailor Meadows. Tailor is a recruitment evangelist at Indeed, where he consults with national employers, helping them improve recruitment strategies through data, insights, and trends. And that's me, Samantha Rosenberg. I'm on Indeed's Job Seeker Experience team. We're responsible for creating helpful resources and events like this Jobcast and the virtual hiring tour for our users like you. Take it away, Tailor.
Hi, everyone. It is so good to be with you today. We have put together this content with a lot of love for you. We want to go through all things virtual interviewing with you today so that you feel as confident as possible when it's time for you to actually have your conversation. So this is what you can expect to learn today. I'm going to walk you through how to prep for a virtual interview, as well as tips and tricks around video interviewing best practices, are really understanding that you're going to be encountering a variety of different platforms, as well as what to do when things don't go as planned, because technology is amazing until it's not. And then lastly, we're going to go over how to follow up after the event so that you leave a lasting impression on your interviewer. This is our North Star at Indeed. So if you've joined any of our webcasts in the past, or if you've followed any of our work, you know that this is the most important thing to us. This is our mission. It's more important now than ever. And this is really why Indeed has helped employers shift all their hiring practices online, which is why we started the virtual hiring tour. So for those of you who are already signed up for the virtual hiring tour, welcome. We are so excited to have you. For those of you who have not signed up yet, I'd love to just take a quick minute to explain to you exactly what it is, because I'm so proud of this initiative and what we've done to innovate on your behalf so that you can still have conversations and interviews even during this wild time that we're living in right now. So the virtual hiring tour, think of it as simply a virtual hiring event in an organized capacity where we are working with quite literally hundreds of employers to facilitate interviews with you, to really kind of mitigate the communication stress of having to, wait a really long time before hearing about next steps and things like that. It's an instant way for you to connect with an interview and a new job opportunity right on the spot. And so if you haven't signed up for it yet, you can visit the link right on the site here. It's indeed.com/virtual hiring tour. And we've just gotten such great feedback from people on this platform, and particularly this initiative, how it's helping them find jobs quickly, even during life and times of COVID. So feel free to visit that link. And then, of course, if you have questions either before, during, or after the virtual hiring tour, you can either connect with us now, connect with us later, ask us questions so that we can guide you through the entire process. Now, even though your interview may be virtual, the need for preparation is very real and it still exists. Now, while a lot of what we're going to cover can be applied in an on-site capacity as well, because we live in a virtual world these days, there are just a couple of nuances that we wanted to kind of go over with you, just to make sure that you feel as confident as possible in your interview and you know what to expect. So for the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to make sure that you carefully read through that job description and the event details more than once. The reason for this is because, of course, not only are we going to offer you detailed descriptions of what the actual role entails and what you need to prepare for the interview itself, but the event description will then also go into greater details on really important things like whether or not this is going to be the first conversation in a series of many. Maybe if there are any certifications that the employer is looking for you to discuss or bring to the table, perhaps any additional materials they want you to have on hand, or maybe even what to wear to the interview. That's a question that we get asked all the time. What do I wear to my interview? And oftentimes the employer will make a note of that on your behalf so that you don't even have to worry about it. So make sure that you read through that a couple of times to make sure that you're fully informed before you step into your interview. Now, the second thing that I want you to do is actually research the organization. There is nothing more impressive to a recruiter than when you can come to the table as a candidate and speak fluently to their business. So a couple of places that I want to recommend for you to educate yourself on the employer is first on their Indeed company page. So what you can do either from the job posting or just by going into the Indeed.com and typing in the name of the employer, you can actually land on their company page where you can do things like read reviews, which you can actually filter by job type and by location. So if you're really wanting to, get the skinny on someone's experience there in that role, you can do that. There's also another really great tab called Q&A where other people who have interviewed for the organization in the past or who have worked there in the past can ask questions, things like the interviewing experience, scheduling, comp and benefits, and things like that. So it's a great place to go and educate yourself on the employer without even having to do much heavy lifting. And then the second place, of course, is going to be their corporate career site. So making sure that you go, to that page, see if there are any gaps, right, that you need to fill in for yourself in terms of culture, values, and things like that. So that way, when it does come to have that conversation, you really can speak articulately to what it is that they're looking for and what it is that they believe in. I want you to consider tailoring your resume to the actual role that you're applying for. So what you can do here is a hack that I always recommend for people is when you're actually in the body of the job description, think about or identify keywords that are in there that you can extract and then use in your resume so that way it's a very symbiotic match. It's a great way for you to propose your candidacy in a competitive fashion. And it allows the recruiter to see, that you actually have the skill sets and experience and characteristics that they're looking for. Something else that you can do that is great is to have a professional summary at the very top of the page as well. So that way, it's typically about one sentence in length, but it just kind of sets the tone for the rest of the document. And it kind of pitches, who you are and what you're looking for. Doing these things will allow you to really highlight your accomplishments and your skill sets in a really relevant way. Now, practice makes perfect, you guys. So what I want you to consider doing is work on a 1-minute elevator pitch about yourself. The idea behind this is so that because when you're in a virtual environment, especially in a virtual engagement, sometimes these interviews can be condensed in nature. So you just have less time to converse with your recruiter. But this is going to be a great opportunity for you to really define who you are as a professional and what your career goals are, and more importantly, how they're going to be relevant to the company. So when you're thinking about constructing this pitch, some maybe questions that you could use for inspiration are, am I better at data and crunching numbers, or am I more of a creative type, or do I have excellent customer service skills, or maybe even thinking about a quick story that you can talk about to really reference all these things. It's just going to create a much more personalized approach for you, and it's going to allow you to kind of identify yourself in a concise way. I want you to use your resume as a guide. So whether that's having the resume up on your actual desktop, or if you print it out and have it next to you, it's just really good to be able to reference it quickly if you want to discuss maybe an accomplishment of yours, if there are any sort of numbers tethered to that accomplishment or a project that you've worked on. It's really great to be able to reference it quickly and use exact facts instead of trying to remember exactly what they are. Now, another thing that could be really great to really just influence the conversation in a positive way is to prepare at least one question. We are going to link in another article for you for ideas of what questions to ask in an interview. But again, because the conversation may be condensed in fashion, you may only have time to ask one. But a couple of great examples of questions that I would recommend would be, can you describe the working culture of the company? How does the company measure success for this role in particular? Or maybe, what is your company's customer service philosophy? I think that this is going to be a really great way for you to showcase that you've done your homework, but that you want to hear from them, and allows them to kind of sell you on the role a little bit as well. And then test your tech. So we're going to dive into this in a greater capacity in just a couple of minutes. But what I want you to make sure that you do for every conversation you have is test your microphone and your camera and your internet connection, so that that's not something that you have to worry about when you actually begin having the conversation. So that's actually going to parlay us really well into how to best set yourself up for success during the interview itself. So these are just some general best practices. The next couple of slides have a lot of info on them. Don't worry about frantically jotting all this down. We are recording this, so you are going to receive a copy of this to refer back to later. But I wanted to just kind of go over general best practices with you. So the best thing that you can do, specifically if you do live in a home with other people, is to alert them ahead of time that you simply cannot be disturbed during the time of your interview. A best practice that I like to employ, I pad myself with about 15 minutes before my interview and about 15 minutes after, so that I can do my final prep and then I can kind of collect myself afterwards, so that way I don't feel rushed, or I feel like I just have the time by myself to have the interview and conduct it in the way that I see fit. A trick that you might try is to face towards the door if you're afraid of this happening, so that you can non-verbally communicate to someone if they do walk in that now is not a good time. Or they can quickly, when they do come in, the camera won't catch them. So it's a good way to protect yourself, and also be able to communicate, right, that this is not a good time to be disturbed. A good trick of the trade as well is to make sure that your lighting is good in the room. So something that I do, right, I'm presenting this from my dining room table right now. I make sure that I am facing my series of bay windows so that I can leverage that natural light to come in and illuminate me. It really does a couple of wonders for you. It makes you look less tired. It allows you to look more engaged. But if you are relegated to a room that doesn't have great natural light, something I'd recommend is investing in a ring light. You can actually buy smaller clip-on ones now that clip right to your phone or your laptop that do a really good job of imitating natural light. So again, you still kind of get the effect. And you can find them on Amazon for less than $20. So I would recommend doing that if you are looking to just kind of present yourself more confidently in your interview. I want you to clean your space. This is something that I do on a daily basis, even if I'm not, in partaking in a ton of virtual conversations that day. But my second grade teacher, Mrs. Booth, said it best. She said, organized space, organized mind. I'm quite literally 34 years old now, and I still remember this. I'm actually going to be posting a video about this on my Instagram later because it does make such an impact. But when your space around you is clean, it really can help you project confidence and authority in a conversation, just based on that quick psychological trick. So try that out because I think that it would really help you. I know that it helps me. I want you to have a copy of your resume handy, as we talked about, for easy reference, and then set a glass of water nearby. It's okay to take a sip of water during a conversation. I certainly know that my body can play tricks on me when I'm either nervous or I'm wanting to really present myself. And part of that is just getting dry mouth. So just keep water near you. It's okay to sip it. We're all human. It really can kind of help reset you in the moment. Now, I promise you that we talk about tech best practices. So of course, outside of your webcam, your microphone, and your audio, making sure that those work. Some things that you can do with respect to organized space, organized mind, because that translates to virtual as well, is to make sure that your desktop is cleaned up, that you are not showing any tabs, right, that you don't necessarily want to be seen. And in the event that you maybe need to share your screen to show something during an interview, you just want to present yourself, right, in an organized fashion virtually as well. And then make sure that all of your notifications are paused. So I run my business on a Mac, and let me tell you, on an hourly basis, I'm getting news updates, social media updates, emails that are coming in, Slack pings, the whole 9 yards. So just make sure that you go in and pause all of those so that you're not distracted during your conversation and get knocked off course. And then check your internet connection. At the very least, just make sure that you're not downloading anything in the background to slow down that connection. And then set your phone to silent. I would even recommend, if you know you're not going to be using your phone at all during your conversation, just turn it over maybe and set it on the other side of the table so that you're not distracted by that either. Now, if you're using our virtual interviewing platform to actually conduct your interview, I'm really proud of this. It's super easy to use, but I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to walk you through it and just to make sure that you were aware of a couple of its nuances so that you knew exactly how it functioned. So first and foremost, right, this is, again, a video interviewing platform that Indeed created and designed. But the day before your interview, you're going to receive an email and a text message from us. And both are going to contain a link to the virtual interviewing platform itself. So here's just a couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, it looks great and it works very well on a mobile device as well as a desktop. So feel free to use whatever device you feel most comfortable with. And then on the check-in screen, you're going to see a custom welcome message from the employer, and then you'll be prompted to get in line. From there, you're going to see a pop-up asking for your phone number, which will be used to text you when it's your time for your interview. So that way, you don't have to sit there just staring at your computer waiting. We'll notify you when it's time to actually come inside of the room. And at that point, then you'll be able to see how many people are in line ahead of you, which is great because it's going to give you a good sense for timing. And then at that point, then when it's actually your turn to be interviewed, you're going to see a timer on the page, which means that you have about 5 minutes to join, which is really important because otherwise you're going to get kicked to the back of the line. And we want to make sure that you're able to join on time. And then when you're ready, you can simply click go ahead and join interview room. And then you'll be put directly inside of the room, but you'll get to join first before your interviewer. So if you wanted to take a minute to set your camera right, make sure that you were all spiffed up, you'll be able to have a quick minute to be able to do that. And the great news about all this is that it looks and feels very similar to FaceTime or to Zoom. So all of those controls that like muting, stop the video, end call, all going to be there for you. Now, if you are using Zoom, which is totally fine, I use Zoom. We're using it right now, right? I use it for a series of my meetings. The first thing that you want to do is just make sure that those event details of your interview are saved in your own personal calendar so that you don't get dates and times mixed up. And then simply just make sure that you have the Zoom app downloaded, your account is all set up, and that you're logged in early so that you don't have to worry about any of that ahead of time. And then that, honestly, what that does for you is it's going to set the stage. But some things to think in mind as you're actually preparing to get online and have your conversation is, dress professionally. Of course, like I said, that event details page may outline for you what exactly you could wear. But a good rule of thumb is to just dress in solid colors. If you don't know what to wear, I tend to live by smart casual. So maybe it's a button down, a blazer, a nice top or a blouse, whatever you feel most comfortable in. That's usually a good median because you kind of can't go wrong with it. And then, as I said, adjust the lighting in the room, make sure that you feel confident with it, and center yourself directly in the middle of the screen so that you can feel as natural as possible when you're actually engaging with your interviewer. Now, body language is really important also. So this can really influence your overall chat. Look at the webcam right when you're talking, right, to make direct eye contact with your interviewer. But above all, you have the power to control the energy of your conversation, and your recruiters are having a lot of chats in the same day. So you could really stand out just by showcasing that good energy. A good way to do that is sit up straight, have good posture, and nod when you're listening and paying attention so that it kind of showcases active engagement. And as you can probably tell, I'm a hand gesturer myself. It does make me feel more confident and comfortable when I'm talking, but you don't want to get so animated that it's distracting from the conversation. So try to keep it at bay, but don't feel like you have to hide it if you do feel that you are able to communicate more naturally by using those hand gestures. And then in terms of maximizing your wait time, make sure that you RSVP well in advance so that you don't have to worry about that. And if you are someone that does get nervous before your conversations, that's okay. It happens to a lot of us, if not all of us. I tend to really enjoy breathing exercises. I could recommend Calm to you. That's a great app. Headspace is one that I also use frequently. They have 3-minute and 5-minute breathing exercises, but you would be surprised, especially if you are nervous, how those really kind of calm you down and allow you to then articulate yourself better and come to the table composed because you've had a chance to just breathe and connect with yourself. And then, of course, practice your elevator pitch and then understand what's on your resume pretty fluidly so that you can easily tap into that. Now, as I said, there are things that go wrong all the time. It's of course, it doesn't ever happen until you're actually live in some sort of an environment. But if things do go wrong, use this to your benefit, right? So what a lot of recruiters will do is they will pay attention to how you actually respond to this. So if you do experience a video or an audio interruption, one of the best things that you can do is make sure that you confirm your phone number with your interviewer ahead of time to just say, if we do get disconnected, did you want to pick up the conversation via phone or maybe reschedule? It's just a great way to set those proper expectations so that if you do get cut off, it's not the end of the world. You can just pick up where you left off. And then, noise interruptions, they totally happen. I live in the city. I mean, bulldozers and dump trucks and leaf blowers and ambulances, it all exists. Maybe you have kids and, they are making noise from another room. Just simply apologize, right? Ask for a few moments to take care of it. Maybe mute your microphone during the times that you're not speaking. But then this also applies to then when someone, unexpectedly enters the room. So what you can do is again, apologize, right, for the disruption, ask for a few minutes, perhaps turn off your video and your audio, just take care of it quickly and then come back. Again, handling this with grace is really going to set you apart. I can assure you that your interviewers and your recruiters that you're talking to are also battling, right, other people being home and disruptions happening. So you're human, just politely excuse yourself, handle it, and you'll be good to go, I promise. And then finally, how to follow up. So what I would recommend is always make sure that you are sending a follow-up note afterwards. What I would say is you want to send it within 24 hours. And of course, thank them for their time. But maybe what you could do is identify a part of your conversation that really stood out to you. Maybe you cracked a joke and you got a little bit of a laugh out of it. Or if you want to maybe reiterate your 30, 60, 90 plan as to how you're going to tackle the role, whatever you can reiterate to identify who you are is just going to be a really great way to set yourself apart. So, a lot of information in a short period of time. I know that I went through that pretty quickly, but I wanted to make sure that we had time for questions. So, Samantha is going to facilitate our Q&A for us. We have other folks on standby as well that have advice for you too. And then I will land the plane and take us home for you. So, Samantha, what questions came through the chat while we went through our content?
Thanks, Taylor. Yeah, that was great. So there's actually quite a few questions around sample questions that someone can ask their interviewer. And so just a quick note, there are a lot of articles on this actually on our Indeed career guide. So I highly recommend looking at those. And that's definitely a good question because you guys do want to make sure that you are asking those questions. It all at the same time as the interviewer is interviewing you and want to make sure that you're a good fit, but you also want to understand the company and make sure that you are going to enjoy and are a good fit for the company as well. So Taylor, do you have any specific questions or ideas where specific questions that they can be asking the interviewer?
Yeah. So, I actually, one of the ones that I lean into the most is, well, first of all, always keep your questions open-ended if possible, because that invites more of a conversation. But what I always like to understand from the recruiter themselves is I say, talk to me about what your favorite part of your role is, or, what is something about the company that has really stood out to you, especially this year, because that then really kind of invites a conversation around culture, around the employee experience. And then you're allowing them to talk about themselves, which I promise you, they're not getting to do very often in these interviews because they do run so quickly. So anything that you can invite in around their experience, I think would be a great way to go.
Awesome. All right. Someone asked, what if all you have is your cell phone to do the interview? So I can actually take this one. If you are interviewing this week or next week as part of the virtual hiring tour, the virtual interview platform actually allows you to use your mobile phone as well. So you'll receive, like Taylor said, 2 text messages and an email, and you can just click the link. You can do it through your email. So you can use your desktop or laptop device, or you can just use your phone. If you're not interviewing through the virtual hiring tour, that's definitely something I would recommend you talk to to the hiring manager about before the interview, just to make sure that they understand that. Maybe you make that a phone call instead of a video interview. That's definitely something you can work with them on. But this week, definitely use your mobile phone if you are interviewing. All right, why don't we take a few more questions? So, this is a good one. So if you are offered a job on the spot, but you feel that you still need more information or more time because maybe you are interviewing somewhere else before you accept, what can you do?
So this is a question I've gotten in the past. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with being very gracious and grateful for the time, and especially if you are being offered on the spot. I mean, that's great. I think it's completely appropriate to say, thank you so much. I really do appreciate the offer. It's something I'm going to take into consideration. I do have a couple of more conversations to have, but I would love to, follow up with you in the next couple of days, or, maybe set your own time parameter around that to let them know when you'll be getting back to them on a decision. But it's completely okay to say that you're excited for the offer and thank them for it, but that you need a little bit of time to make your decision.
Awesome. Definitely. All right. So someone asked, in the past, I was told that you should never discuss compensation, but in the event that they ask how should you respond?
Yes. So very common question. What I have found that works really well for me is if they invite a conversation about compensation, or they ask you, what your expectations are or whatnot, the best approach is to ask them, well, what would be a typical range for this position? So that way, right, you're not asking for an exact number, but it does allow you to then come in and say, I mean, to better understand how to answer your question, what's the overall range? And then from there, you can kind of determine whether or not that fits within, what expectation you have for yourself, and kind of tailor the response from there. That's what I have found to work well in the past, and typically recruiters will answer that question.
Definitely, and I'll add something there. If definitely come prepared for that, and especially for follow-up interviews or conversations that you'll have with a hiring manager after you get the offer as well. And you actually can use Indeed has a awesome resource, an awesome tool called Indeed Salary Calculator, where you put in your position, your city and state, your number of years of experience, different things like that. And it'll basically provide you with a range of a normal compensation, like the low end, the high end, for someone with your experience in that type of role in your location. Like Taylor had mentioned, like a lot of people, you want to make sure that you do that research beforehand also. So that is a really great tool. Okay, so someone had asked, how do we get the recruiter's email address? And so I can add something quickly here. Definitely something to ask in your questions at the end of the interview. That's also how you're going to be able to send them that thank you email as well. Taylor, do you have anything to add there?
No, I would say, a lot of people like to protect that information, but in the event that you have a great conversation, you want to follow up, completely okay to ask for that. And the worst that they can say is no.
For sure. I'll actually bring up a question that someone has asked in a few other webinars. And so someone wanted to know, are these interviews with recruiters or the hiring managers from the company? And I can actually take this one. And so this will depend. I would say most of them will probably be hiring managers from the company, but definitely be prepared for it to be a hiring manager or a recruiter or an agency that employer is using to recruit. And so definitely be prepared for both. It could definitely be either. All right, we actually have an awesome question that was posted on the community thread before this presentation. So I'll go ahead and look through those. So someone asked, what should I have with me during the interview? So good question. I know, Taylor, you spoke about this a little bit, but I would definitely say an electronic copy of your resume in case they do want you to send it over. Definitely you want to look prepared and like that is up and you're able to send it to them. Like Taylor mentioned, some water. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to take a sip of water. You're talking a lot. I have water next to me. Taylor does as well. So definitely a cup of water. And the questions to ask your recruiter, it's okay to have that next to you if you need to look back at it. And finally, positive attitude, good energy. That's going to really help you come off as confident. Taylor, do you have anything to add there?
No, the only thing that I was thinking of quite literally is Moira when she sat down for lunch with Alexis and had her little questions on her napkin. It's like what I was thinking about. But quite literally, everything that we had mentioned is fair game. And if it helps you stay organized to have questions prepared and have them sitting next to you, totally cool.
Awesome. Love that show, by the way. All right. Why don't we take just two more questions? We'll go a little over time. So someone asked if more than one person is signed up for the same interview time slot, are we all getting interviewed together, or in a group or separately? So if you are interviewing as part of the virtual hiring tour and you're interviewing on our virtual interview platform, then that will most likely be separate. So it'll be you and the hiring manager or the recruiter. But of course, if you are not interviewing on Indeed's platform and you are interviewing with an employer, maybe via Zoom, Skype, phone interview, any other way that's not on our platform, then it's definitely a possibility that there will be a group. So that is something you can ask the hiring manager beforehand if you would like, I would say. But if you are interviewing as part of the tour this week or next week, it'll most likely be just you and the interviewer. All right, why don't we take one last question, Taylor? And I think this is a really good one. So someone asked how to show your personality during the interview. Do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, absolutely. I keep that same thing in mind for myself when I'm delivering webinars because I want to make them like personable and interesting. I would say the first thing that you can do is, don't be afraid to your nonverbals that I was talking about, hand gestures, things like that. It keeps it more natural. That's a game changer for me that I find really helpful. But something that you might do ahead of time is if you can get the name of the individual that you are going to be talking with, maybe look them up on LinkedIn or something like that ahead of time so that you can break the ice with maybe some sort of a common overlap or something like that. Maybe you went to the same school, whatever that might be. That kind of breaks the ice. And that's then allows you to have, conversations that are natural. And then if, you're a part of a volunteering organization, or if that's important to you, like any sort of personal endeavor in that sense is also great content to share out because, right, it showcases who you are as a person and will translate very well to who you are as a potential employee.
Awesome. Yeah, those are great tips. All right. So I think that's all the time we have for questions today. Just a reminder, you guys can continue asking questions and keep the conversation going on the community at go.indeed.com/hired from home. If you did find this to be helpful, check out our other Jobcast at go.indeed.com/jobcast. And for the latest information from Indeed, make sure you follow us on social media.
Yeah, I just want to wish everyone good luck. Thank you so much for joining. If you need us as a resource in an ongoing capacity after this, you can find me on Instagram. You can find Indeed's page on Instagram as well. So they're at Indeed Works, and then I'm Tailor Presents. Feel free to follow me. I'll be available for DMs. Anything that I can do to support you during your interviews, we'd be happy to do that. So thank you again for joining, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Awesome. Thanks for watching, everyone, and good luck on your virtual interviews.